Imagine a world where power can corrupt in a matter of days. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set up an experiment that would shock the world. He transformed the basement of Stanford University into a mock prison and recruited college students to play the roles of guards and prisoners. At first, it was all pretend, students joking, following the rules, but something terrifying happened. The guards began humiliating the prisoners, enforcing rules with cruel punishments. The prisoners, once confident and carefree, grew anxious, depressed, and even submissive. Within just a few days, the lines between role play and reality blurred. Some guards became sadistic, enjoying the control. Some prisoners broke down entirely. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but it was stopped after only 6 days. This experiment revealed a chilling truth. Ordinary people can commit extraordinary cruelty when given power, and it forced the world to rethink ethics and psychological research forever. What would you do if a respected authority told you to harm another person? In the 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment that tested exactly that. Volunteers were told to administer electric shocks to a learner whenever they answered a question wrong, except the shocks weren't real. Or were they? The volunteers couldn't see the learner, but they could hear screams of pain, begging to stop. Most people expected participants to refuse, but shockingly, about 65% obeyed orders to deliver what they thought were dangerous, even lethal shocks. The study revealed a terrifying truth. Ordinary people are capable of hurting others when instructed by authority. It exposed the dark side of obedience, helping explain how atrocities happen on a massive scale, and it still makes us question the power of authority today.
In 1939, psychologist Wendell Johnson conducted an experiment that would haunt the world of speech therapy forever. He worked with orphaned children in Iowa, testing the power of words on young minds. Some children received positive reinforcement, praised for their speaking, but others were scolded and told they stuttered, even if they spoke perfectly. The results were shocking. Many of the criticized children actually began to stutter, and some carried the speech issues into adulthood. This study revealed a chilling truth. The human mind, especially a child's, is incredibly fragile. Words can build confidence or destroy it. And yet, the orphans never consented, making this one of the most ethically disturbing experiments in psychology.
In 1920, a psychologist named John B. Watson conducted one of the most unsettling experiments in behavioral psychology. His subject? An innocent baby known only as Little Albert. Watson wanted to see if fear could be taught. At first, Albert showed no fear of a white rat, but every time he reached for it, researchers struck a loud, terrifying noise behind him. Soon, Albert began crying and recoiling at the sight of the rat. And not just the rat. His fear spread to other furry objects, including rabbits, dogs, and even a Santa Claus mask with a white beard. This experiment revealed how quickly fears could be conditioned and how they could generalize to other stimuli. But ethically, it was a disaster. Albert's distress was never undone, leaving a lasting mark on one tiny human's life.
Between 1932 and 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted one of the most infamous medical studies in history. Nearly 600 black men in Tuskegee, Alabama were recruited under the guise of free healthcare. But there was a horrifying catch. These men had syphilis, but researchers never treated them, even after penicillin became widely available in the 1940s. The goal? To watch the disease progress naturally. Men suffered from heart damage, blindness, and mental deterioration, while their families were left in the dark. This study revealed the darkest side of medical research, the deliberate exploitation of vulnerable populations. It sparked outrage, changed ethical standards forever, and led to the creation of strict laws protecting human subjects in experiments.
During the Cold War, the CIA launched one of the most secretive and disturbing projects in history, Project MKUltra. Its goal? To unlock the secrets of mind control. Under the cover of national security, agents tested LSD, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and even torture on unsuspecting citizens. People were drugged without consent in bars, hospitals, and military bases, then observed as their minds unraveled. Some never recovered. The CIA believed they could create perfect assassins, erase memories, or implant new ones. But what they actually created was chaos, and victims left scarred for life. When the truth came out in the 1970s, most documents had already been destroyed. To this day, the full extent of MKUltra's experiments remains one of America's darkest secrets.
In 1954, the United States tested a massive hydrogen bomb on Bikini Atoll in the Pacific. But the fallout didn't stay in the sky. It rained down on nearby inhabited islands. The U.S. government launched Project 4.1 to study the effects of radiation on humans. Islanders, including men, women, and children, were exposed without their knowledge or consent. Some developed burns, nausea, hair loss, and even long-term cancers. Doctors observed these effects as if the people were lab subjects, documenting their suffering to study radiation's impact. It was an experiment disguised as disaster relief, and a stark reminder of how human lives were treated as expendable in the name of science and military power.
In the shadowy world of Cold War espionage, the CIA conducted one of its most bizarre and disturbing experiments, Operation Midnight Climax. Secret safe houses were set up, often disguised as brothels. Unwitting men were lured inside, then secretly dosed with LSD while CIA agents observed from behind one-way mirrors. Researchers recorded their reactions, panic, hallucinations, and sometimes total psychological breakdown. The goal? To explore mind control, manipulation, and interrogation techniques. The experiment pushed the boundaries of ethics, exploiting innocent people for secret intelligence gains. Most of the victims never knew they were part of a government experiment. It remains a chilling example of how curiosity, paranoia, and power can combine into human experimentation that crosses every moral line.
During World War II, Nazi doctors conducted some of the most horrifying human experiments in history. Prisoners in concentration camps became unwilling test subjects for what the Nazis called medical research. They were subjected to extreme cold, left half naked in freezing water, or exposed to icy winds to see how long the human body could survive. Others were infected with diseases like typhus and malaria, then left untreated to study the progression of illness. Some were placed in high-altitude chambers, simulating near-death conditions to study the effects on the lungs and heart. These experiments were cruel, sadistic, and entirely unnecessary, Victims suffered, many to the point of death, for pseudoscientific theories and military research. They left a permanent scar on humanity, a horrifying lesson in what happens when science is stripped of morality.
In the 1950s and 60s, scientists wanted to explore what happens when the human brain is cut off from all sensory input. Volunteers were placed in isolation tanks or dark, soundproof rooms for hours or even days at a time. At first, it was calm and quiet, but soon the effects became terrifying. People began hallucinating, imagining entire worlds, hearing voices, and losing track of time. Some experienced anxiety, panic, and even temporary psychosis. These experiments revealed how dependent the mind is on external stimuli and how quickly reality can unravel when the senses are removed. They were groundbreaking scientifically, but ethically questionable, leaving participants traumatized in the pursuit of knowledge.
In the 1950s, psychologist Harry Harlow conducted experiments to understand the importance of love and comfort. But the methods were cruel. Infant monkeys were separated from their mothers and given 2 surrogate mothers, one made of wire that provided food, and one soft cloth that offered no nourishment. The results were shocking. Despite being fed by the wire mother, the baby monkeys clung to the cloth mother for comfort, showing that emotional attachment mattered more than food. But the experiments didn't stop there. Some monkeys were isolated for months, leaving them socially and emotionally scarred. Harlow's work revealed a fundamental truth about humans. Love and comfort are essential for healthy development. But the price of knowledge was heartbreakingly high for these innocent animals, and it raised deep ethical questions about research at any cost.
In the mid-20th century, scientists wanted to understand the limits of human endurance. Volunteers were kept awake for days or even weeks under strict observation to study the effects of sleep deprivation. At first, participants experienced irritability, confusion, and memory lapses. But as hours turned into days, things became terrifying. Some began hallucinating, talking to invisible people, or losing touch with reality entirely. The body and mind started to shut down, showing how critical sleep is for survival. These experiments revealed the fragile balance of the human mind, but they also sparked serious ethical debates. Pushing humans to the edge of sanity for research highlighted a dark truth. Science can sometimes gamble with lives to unlock secrets of the body and brain.
In the 1980s, some researchers conducted experiments that crossed every ethical line. Pregnant women, often from vulnerable populations, were given cocaine or observed while using it, all in the name of studying its effects on their unborn babies. Doctors and scientists monitored fetal development, recording birth defects, low birth weights, and behavioral abnormalities, all while knowing the drug could cause permanent harm. Many of these women were never fully informed of the risks, and some children suffered lifelong consequences. These studies revealed the devastating impact of drugs on prenatal development, but at a human cost that still shocks the world. It became a stark lesson. Science without consent or care can create victims instead of knowledge.
In the mid-20th century, some psychologists attempted to treat homosexuality with aversion therapy, a horrifying practice designed to make people feel repulsion toward their own desires. Patients were subjected to electric shocks, nausea-inducing drugs, and other painful stimuli, while being shown images or asked to think about same-sex attraction. The goal was to create an association between pleasure and pain, hoping to cure their sexual orientation. The results were devastating. Many suffered intense psychological trauma, anxiety, and depression. This practice exposed a dark truth. When prejudice drives science, human beings become mere tools, subjected to cruelty in the name of conformity.
During World War II, Nazi doctors carried out some of the most grotesque experiments on human beings. In the seawater experiments, prisoners were forced to drink only seawater with no access to fresh water to test how long the human body could survive. The results were horrifying. Subjects suffered extreme dehydration, nausea, kidney failure, and eventually death. Some were deliberately given chemicals to see if seawater could be made drinkable, enduring unbearable pain and torment. These experiments revealed nothing about human endurance that couldn't have been learned ethically, but at a human cost that was monstrous. They remain a grim reminder of what happens when science is stripped of morality and compassion.
In the 1930s, Portuguese neurologist Egas Muniz introduced a radical procedure called the prefrontal lobotomy, aiming to cure mental illness by surgically severing connections in the brain's frontal lobe. Patients with severe depression, schizophrenia, or anxiety underwent the procedure, often without fully understanding the risks. Some became passive or emotionally flat. Others experienced permanent cognitive damage. In extreme cases, patients died from the surgery itself. Muniz won a Nobel Prize for this work, but the human cost was immense. The lobotomy revealed a frightening truth. In the pursuit of mental health, science can sometimes inflict more harm than healing. It also sparked decades-long debates about ethics, consent, and the limits of medical experimentation.
In the 1960s, psychologist John Money conducted one of the most infamous and ethically troubling experiments in human history. A young boy, David Reimer, lost his penis in a botched circumcision. Money advised his parents to raise him as a girl, claiming gender identity could be entirely shaped by nurture. David was renamed Brenda and forced to live as a girl with constant psychological pressure to conform. Despite Money's claims of success, the experiment destroyed David's childhood. He struggled with identity, suffered severe depression, and ultimately reclaimed his male identity as a teenager. Tragically, David's life ended in suicide. This experiment revealed a terrifying lesson. Manipulating a person's identity under the guise of science can cause unimaginable suffering. It became a haunting warning about the dangers of experimentation without consent or empathy.
During the tense years of the Cold War, intelligence agencies raced to create the perfect human spy, one who could be controlled completely. Scientists experimented with hypnosis, drugs, and psychological manipulation on unwitting subjects. Volunteers or sometimes prisoners were given hallucinogens like LSD, subjected to sleep deprivation, and forced through repetitive mental conditioning. The goal? To erase memories, implant false identities, and create obedient agents capable of carrying out missions without question. Many subjects suffered psychological breakdowns, permanent trauma, and in some cases, death. These experiments revealed the terrifying lengths governments would go to control the human mind, and the horrifying consequences when curiosity meets power without ethics.
In the 1940s, psychologists and neurosurgeons pushed the boundaries of medicine with extreme brain surgeries aimed at controlling human behavior. Patients with mental illnesses were subjected to operations that altered parts of the brain thought to govern emotion, impulse, and personality. Some had tissue removed or connections severed, often without fully informed consent. Many patients experienced severe personality changes, cognitive impairments, or even death. These experiments revealed that the human mind could be manipulated physically, but at a horrifying cost. They forced the medical world to confront a chilling truth. Tampering with the brain can change a person's very essence, raising profound ethical questions about the limits of science.
During World War II, Nazi doctor Josef Mengele conducted some of the most infamous experiments in history on twins imprisoned in Auschwitz. His goal? To study genetics, heredity, and human survival under the most brutal conditions. Twins were subjected to painful injections, deliberate infections, surgeries without anesthesia, and extreme exposure to cold or starvation. Some had body parts removed or were killed to compare results with their twin. Survivors were often left permanently disabled, scarred, or mentally traumatized. Mengele's experiments revealed nothing humane or scientific. They were acts of pure cruelty disguised as research. They remain a horrifying reminder of how ideology, power, and pseudoscience can turn humans into disposable subjects. During World War II, researchers wanted to understand how the human body reacts to extreme cold, so they immersed subjects in ice water to study hypothermia. Victims, often prisoners or soldiers, were left in freezing conditions for hours, sometimes until near death. Scientists measured body temperature, heart rate, and survival time, documenting every shiver, convulsion, and collapse. Some were revived. Others didn't survive the ordeal. The experiments were brutal, pushing humans to the very edge of life. These tests revealed how dangerously fragile the human body can be under extreme cold, but at a horrifying human cost. They remain one of the darkest examples of experimentation where survival was treated as a statistic rather than a life.
During World War II, Nazi researchers conducted high-altitude experiments to see how humans survive in thin air, simulating conditions pilots might face at extreme altitudes. Prisoners were placed in low-pressure chambers where oxygen levels dropped dangerously low. Subjects experienced loss of consciousness, severe brain damage, and even death as scientists observed how the body reacted to oxygen deprivation. Some were revived while others were left permanently disabled. These experiments revealed the deadly limits of human physiology, but at an unimaginable cost. They remain a chilling reminder of how curiosity and science, without ethics, can turn people into mere test subjects for extreme conditions.
During World War II, scientists at the University of Minnesota launched a controversial experiment to understand the effects of severe starvation. Healthy male volunteers agreed to drastically reduce their calorie intake for months under strict supervision. The results were startling. Participants experienced extreme weight loss, muscle atrophy, fatigue, irritability, depression, and obsessive thoughts about food. Some developed lasting psychological effects, even after returning to normal diets. This study revealed the devastating impact of hunger on both the mind and body. But unlike many dark experiments, it was conducted with consent and oversight. Still, the human cost was profound, showing just how fragile our bodies and psyches are when deprived of basic sustenance. In the 1950s and 60s, researchers at various institutions and the CIA conducted LSD experiments on prisoners, often without their full knowledge or consent. Subjects were given hallucinogenic drugs to study their effects on the mind, behavior, and suggestibility. Volunteers experienced vivid hallucinations, panic, paranoia, and complete loss of control. Some had terrifying, hours-long psychological breakdowns. The goal was to explore mind control, interrogation techniques, and the limits of human consciousness. But many participants suffered lasting trauma. These experiments revealed the profound vulnerability of the human mind under chemical influence and highlighted the dangerous ethics of testing powerful drugs on unsuspecting people.
During the Cold War, military researchers experimented with mind control on soldiers, testing the effects of drugs, sleep deprivation, and extreme stress. Volunteers were given powerful hallucinogens like LSD, forced to stay awake for days, or subjected to disorienting environments to see how their minds could be manipulated. Some soldiers experienced hallucinations, memory loss, and severe psychological trauma. The goal was to create obedient operatives who could follow orders without question or withstand interrogation techniques. These experiments revealed the terrifying malleability of the human mind under extreme conditions and exposed a dark intersection of science and military ambition, where human well-being was often treated as expendable.
In the mid-20th century, psychologists explored what happens when the human brain is pushed beyond its limits. Volunteers were placed in rooms flooded with blinding lights, deafening noise, and chaotic stimuli, sometimes for hours or days on end. At first, participants tried to cope, but soon the effects became terrifying. People experienced panic, hallucinations, confusion, and complete loss of focus. Some even suffered long-term psychological trauma from the constant assault on their senses. These experiments revealed the fragile balance of human perception and how quickly reality can unravel under extreme conditions. They were groundbreaking scientifically, but also a stark reminder: the brain can be both incredibly resilient and dangerously vulnerable.
In the 1940s and 50s, as nuclear technology advanced, scientists began testing the effects of radioactive isotopes on humans, often without their knowledge. Subjects, including hospital patients and military personnel, were injected with radiation to see how it spread through the body. Some experienced nausea, burns, organ damage, and long-term cancer risks. Many were never fully informed of the dangers, turning ordinary people into unwitting lab subjects for the sake of science. These experiments revealed the dangerous power of radiation, but also highlighted a dark ethical reality. When knowledge is prioritized over consent, human lives can become mere data points.
During World War II and later conflicts, militaries experimented with stimulant drugs on soldiers to enhance performance on the battlefield. Troops were given cocaine, amphetamines, and other stimulants to test endurance, alertness, and aggression under extreme conditions. While some soldiers reported increased focus and energy, the side effects were brutal: paranoia, hallucinations, heart problems, and even violent outbursts. Many became addicted, suffering long-term health consequences long after the experiments ended. These studies revealed the dangerous lengths militaries would go to push the human body and mind. But they also raised a chilling question. When performance is valued over well-being, soldiers become living experiments.
During the 1940s, scientists conducted malaria experiments on prisoners to test new treatments and vaccines. Volunteers were deliberately infected with the deadly parasite and closely monitored as the disease progressed. Subjects suffered high fevers, chills, severe weakness, and excruciating pain, all while researchers documented every symptom. Some were treated with experimental drugs,
while others endured the infection to provide control data. These experiments revealed valuable medical knowledge, but at a severe human cost. They exposed the dark reality of research, where consent was often incomplete and suffering was part of the methodology.
In the 19th and early 20th centuries, colonial researchers in India conducted cholera experiments on unsuspecting people to study the deadly disease. Villagers, prisoners, and hospital patients were deliberately exposed to cholera bacteria, often without their knowledge or consent. Many suffered severe diarrhea, dehydration, and agonizing deaths, all while scientists documented the progression of the illness. These experiments were aimed at understanding and controlling outbreaks, but the human cost was enormous. The studies revealed important insights into infectious disease, but at a terrifying ethical price. They remain a stark reminder of what can happen when scientific curiosity overrides human rights.
During World War II, Nazi doctors conducted forced hypothermia experiments on prisoners to study human survival in extreme cold. Victims were stripped, soaked in icy water, or left outside in freezing temperatures for hours. Researchers measured body temperature, heart rate, and survival time, often prolonging suffering to see how long humans could endure. Many prisoners died from hypothermia, while others suffered permanent organ damage and neurological trauma. These experiments revealed the deadly limits of the human body, but the methods were nothing short of torture. They remain one of the darkest examples of science used as a weapon against innocent lives.
In the early 20th century, some medical researchers conducted syphilis experiments on unsuspecting humans under the guise of testing vaccines. Participants, including prisoners, hospital patients, and marginalized communities, were deliberately injected with diseased blood. Many developed painful sores, systemic infections, and long-term health problems, all while scientists monitored the progression of the disease. The goal was to study how syphilis developed and how potential vaccines might work, but consent was often missing or misleading, leaving victims exploited. These experiments revealed critical information about the disease, but at a horrifying human cost. They serve as a chilling reminder that scientific advancement without ethics can destroy lives.
In the 20th century, researchers conducted experiments that tested the human body's reaction to electric shocks. Volunteers, or in darker cases, prisoners, were instructed to endure shocks of increasing intensity, sometimes approaching painful or even dangerous levels. Some experiments, like Stanley Milgram's famous obedience study, explored psychological responses, while others measured physical limits. Subjects experienced severe pain, fear, and anxiety, and in some cases, long-term psychological trauma. These experiments revealed the terrifying effects of authority and extreme physical stress on humans, but also raised profound ethical questions about using people as living instruments for science.
During World War II and the early Cold War, researchers conducted human freefall experiments to understand survival during high-altitude parachute jumps and falls. Subjects, often soldiers or prisoners, were dropped from extreme heights under controlled conditions. Scientists measured impact forces, survival rates, and injury patterns. While some participants suffered broken bones, internal injuries, or near-fatal trauma, the experiments revealed the limits of the human body in freefall, but at a horrifying cost to those involved. These studies showed how far humans could be pushed in the name of knowledge, but also highlighted a dark truth. Survival science often treats humans as expendable test subjects.
In 1848, a railroad worker named Phineas Gage survived a horrific accident that would change neuroscience forever. While tamping explosives, a metal rod shot through his skull, destroying much of his frontal lobe. Miraculously, Gage survived, but something remarkable happened. His personality changed dramatically. Once responsible and mild-mannered, he became impulsive, irritable, and unpredictable. This single accident gave scientists the first clear evidence that the frontal lobe controls decision-making, emotion, and personality. While unplanned, Gage's tragedy revealed profound truths about the brain and became one of the most famous case studies in medical history.
In the 1950s and 60s, researchers explored what happens when the human brain is cut off from all sensory input. Volunteers floated in soundproof, pitch-black tanks filled with body-temperature water, deprived of sight, sound, and touch. At first, the experience was peaceful, but over hours, the effects turned disturbing. Many participants began hallucinating, lost track of time, and experienced intense anxiety or panic. Some even reported temporary psychosis. These studies revealed the fragile balance of the human mind and how easily perception of reality can unravel. They were groundbreaking scientifically, but also a stark warning. Isolation can warp the mind in terrifying ways.
In the early 20th century, researchers conducted malnutrition experiments on children in orphanages to study the effects of starvation on growth, immunity, and disease. Children were deliberately given insufficient food or nutrient-deficient diets for extended periods. The results were devastating. Kids suffered stunted growth, weakened immune systems, fatigue, and developmental delays. Many experienced long-term physical and psychological effects, all while being treated as test subjects rather than human beings. These experiments revealed crucial information about nutrition, but at a horrifying human cost. They remain one of history's starkest reminders that scientific curiosity without ethics can destroy innocent lives.
In the mid-20th century, researchers conducted experiments exposing pregnant women to X-rays to study the effects of radiation on fetal development. Many women were unaware of the risks, unknowingly putting their unborn children in danger. The results were alarming. Babies were born with birth defects, low birth weights, and long-term health problems, including increased risk of cancer. Researchers documented these outcomes to understand radiation's impact, but at a horrifying cost to both mothers and children. This experiment revealed crucial information about human development and radiation, but it also stands as a grim reminder that scientific curiosity without consent can have lifelong consequences.
In the mid-20th century, electroconvulsive therapy, also known as ECT, was used to treat mental illness, but some experiments pushed it to extreme and dangerous limits. Patients were subjected to repeated, high-intensity electric shocks far beyond therapeutic norms. The effects were terrifying. Volunteers experienced memory loss, confusion, broken bones, and intense psychological trauma, sometimes permanently altering their personalities. While some patients did show temporary improvement in symptoms, the human cost was severe and often devastating. These experiments revealed the powerful effects of electricity on the human brain, but they also exposed a chilling truth. Medical procedures without ethical oversight can cause more harm than healing.
During the 20th century, militaries experimented with hypnosis on soldiers to test the limits of human suggestion, memory, and mind control. Volunteers were subjected to intense sessions designed to implant commands, erase memories, or make them perform tasks without conscious awareness. Some soldiers experienced hallucinations, confusion, and profound psychological distress, struggling to separate hypnotic suggestion from reality.
Researchers hoped to create obedient operatives who could act without question, but the results were unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. These experiments revealed both the vulnerability and complexity of the human mind and served as a chilling reminder that when science seeks control over thought, the consequences can be deeply traumatic.
During World War II, researchers sought to understand how humans survive extreme flight conditions. Pilots, and sometimes prisoners, were subjected to high-speed centrifuges that simulated extreme G-forces experienced in combat. Subjects experienced loss of consciousness, internal bleeding, vision loss, and severe physical stress. Some survived only to endure permanent damage to their bodies and nervous systems. The experiments aimed to push the human body to its limits, but the methods were brutal and often deadly. These studies revealed the physiological boundaries of human endurance in aviation, but at a terrifying cost, showing how scientific curiosity under wartime pressure could override ethics and human safety.
In the mid-20th century, psychologists and prison officials conducted experiments using solitary confinement to study its effects on the human mind. Inmates were placed in small, dark cells with minimal human contact for days, weeks, or even months. The results were chilling. Prisoners experienced hallucinations, extreme anxiety, depression, and a gradual breakdown of their sense of reality. Some lost the ability to function normally, even after being released from isolation. These experiments revealed the terrifying psychological impact of extreme loneliness and the fragility of the human mind under sensory and social deprivation. They remain a haunting example of how control and observation can cross into cruelty.
In the mid-20th century, researchers tested flu vaccines on prisoners to study immunity and virus behavior. Volunteers, or sometimes coerced subjects, were deliberately exposed to live influenza viruses after receiving experimental vaccines. Participants experienced high fevers, severe illness, and prolonged discomfort, while scientists monitored the body's immune response. Although the experiments helped advance vaccine development, the ethical cost was high, with many subjects exposed to serious risk without full understanding. These studies revealed critical insights into infectious disease, but also highlighted a recurring theme in human experimentation. Progress often came at the expense of vulnerable people.
In the mid-20th century, psychologists conducted experiments to understand human behavior under extreme stress. Volunteers were placed in complex, confusing mazes or labyrinths, sometimes for hours or days, with little guidance or control over their environment. Participants experienced frustration, anxiety, and disorientation, and some developed panic or obsessive behaviors trying to escape. Researchers observed how stress, problem-solving, and human decision-making unfolded under pressure. These experiments revealed the psychological limits of endurance and adaptability, but they also demonstrated how easily the human mind can be pushed to its breaking point for the sake of research. After World War II, scientists conducted experiments to understand how humans recover from severe starvation. Volunteers, some of whom had been deliberately starved in prior studies, were given carefully monitored diets to observe rehabilitation, weight gain, and metabolic changes. While the goal was to save lives and improve famine relief strategies, participants experienced physical discomfort, digestive issues, and psychological stress as their bodies struggled to readjust. Researchers meticulously recorded every reaction,
from rapid weight gain to emotional responses. These experiments revealed critical insights into nutrition, metabolism, and recovery, but they also highlighted the ethical tightrope of using humans to study extreme deprivation, even in a controlled restorative setting.
In the mid-20th century, some researchers conducted experiments that crossed every ethical line, injecting humans with live cancer cells to study tumor growth and disease progression. Subjects, often vulnerable hospital patients or prisoners, were exposed to life-threatening conditions without fully understanding the risks. Many developed aggressive cancers, suffered intense pain, and faced long-term health consequences. These experiments revealed some scientific truths about cancer, but at a horrifying cost. They remain a grim reminder that medical research without consent or compassion can turn people into unwilling subjects of deadly science.
While actual human cloning hasn't been ethically or practically performed, scientists and ethicists have conducted thought experiments and theoretical studies on volunteers to explore the boundaries of cloning. These exercises asked, what if we could create a genetically identical human? What psychological, social, and moral consequences would arise? Volunteers participated in simulations, discussions, and hypothetical decision-making, helping researchers understand identity, consent, and the human cost of manipulating life itself. Though no one was physically harmed, these experiments pushed the mind to confront the limits of science, morality, and the definition of what it means to be human, highlighting that curiosity can challenge ethics just as deeply as physical experiments.
During the Korean and Vietnam Wars, militaries conducted experiments to test performance-enhancing and psychoactive drugs on soldiers. Troops were given stimulants, hallucinogens, and other experimental substances to study endurance, alertness, and combat behavior. While some drugs temporarily improved focus or aggression, the side effects were severe. Paranoia, hallucinations, heart problems, and long-term psychological trauma. Many soldiers became unwilling participants in high-risk studies, their bodies and minds pushed beyond normal limits. These experiments revealed the extremes militaries would pursue to gain an advantage, but they also highlighted a chilling truth. In the quest for power and performance, human well-being was often secondary.
Throughout the 20th century, some psychologists conducted experiments on children without consent, studying trauma, fear, and behavioral conditioning. Young participants were exposed to stressful or frightening situations, sometimes punished for normal behaviors or forced to endure confusing, harmful tasks. The effects were profound. Children developed anxiety, depression, nightmares, and long-term emotional scars, all while researchers recorded their responses as data. Many never fully recovered from the psychological damage inflicted in the name of science. These experiments revealed insights into human development, but at a horrifying cost, showing how vulnerability and innocence can be exploited when ethics are ignored.
As space exploration advanced, scientists began testing how humans would survive long-term isolation in space-like conditions. Volunteers were confined to sealed habitats with minimal contact, simulating months or even years in orbit. At first, the isolation was manageable, but over time, participants experienced sleep disturbances, hallucinations, irritability, and severe psychological stress. Some developed conflicts with fellow volunteers or struggled to perform basic tasks under mental strain.
These experiments revealed the psychological challenges of long-duration space travel, highlighting how social isolation and sensory deprivation can strain the human mind. While voluntary, the studies showed that even controlled environments can push humans to their mental and emotional limits.